He sprinted through the hospital at 11:47 at night. His mistress was in labor, 3 weeks early. Complications. She needed him now. But when Derek Collins rounded the corner toward the maternity wing, he froze. Because there in the luxury VIP suite lay the woman he had divorced 18 months ago. The woman he had secretly sabotaged for 5 years. The woman whose fertility treatments he knew would never work because of a vasectomy he hid from her. Meredith was pregnant with twins, and the man holding her hand was a billionaire. The ring on her finger was 3 times the size of the one Derek gave her. But here is what makes this story unforgettable. The woman Derek destroyed did not just survive, she thrived. And the karma waiting for him in that hospital would shatter everything he thought he knew. Stay with me until the end, because the twist at minute 77 will leave you speechless. If stories about justice and second chances speak to your soul, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment telling me if you have ever witnessed karma work its magic. And share this with someone who needs to hear that the best revenge is living well. Now let us begin. Code Blue in maternity. Code Blue. The overhead speaker crackled through the sterile hallways of St. Catherine's Hospital. Fluorescent lights hummed their constant electric song. The smell of antiseptic mixed with something sweeter. Baby powder, perhaps, or the ghost of flowers left too long in waiting rooms. Somewhere distant, a newborn's cry pierced the silence. The sound of new life announcing itself to a world that had been waiting. Derek Collins sprinted past the information desk at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. His Italian leather shoes squeaked against the polished floor. Each step echoed off the walls like a heartbeat gone wrong. His breath came in ragged gasps. Sweat dampened the collar of his wrinkled dress shirt. The tie he had worn to dinner hung loose around his neck. Forgotten. Irrelevant. His phone buzzed again. The screen glowed with another frantic message from Tiffany. "Where are you? Baby is coming. 3 weeks early. Something is wrong. The doctors are worried." "Come now." Derek's stomach clenched. 3 weeks early. Complications. The words blurred together into a soup of anxiety and guilt, and something else he did not want to examine too closely. He had abandoned a business dinner mid-bite when the first text arrived. Left his colleagues staring at his empty chair. Left his half-eaten steak growing cold on a plate that cost $45, threw $300 on the table and ran without waiting for change. The maternity wing stretched before him like a maze of identical doors and color-coded signs. Blue arrows pointed toward labor and delivery, pink arrows toward the nursery, yellow arrows toward the NICU, where the smallest, most fragile lives fought their earliest battles. Derek followed none of them. He followed the sound of controlled chaos, the beeping of monitors, the hushed voices of nurses moving with purpose, the distant wail of a woman in the final stages of labor. A nurse in purple scrubs nearly collided with him at the corner. She carried a stack of blankets and a clipboard. Her eyes widened as he almost knocked her over. She said, "Sir, you need to check in at the desk. This is a restricted area." He said, "My girlfriend is in labor. Tiffany Brennan, she texted me. Something is wrong. Where is she?" The nurse checked her tablet with practiced efficiency. Her eyebrows rose slightly at the word girlfriend. Derek caught her glance at his left hand, at the wedding ring he still wore because removing it felt too permanent, too final, too much like admitting what he had done. She said, "Miss Brennan is in room 412 down the hall. Turn left at the nurse's station. You will see it on your right." Derek nodded and kept moving, his expensive cologne mixed with the sharp smell of disinfectant. The hallway seemed endless. Each fluorescent light panel marked another step toward a future he was not sure he wanted. He passed a waiting room where families huddled together, an older woman knitting something yellow, a young man pacing with his phone pressed to his ear, a little girl asleep across 2 chairs, her mother's jacket covering her like a blanket. He passed the vending machines, the restrooms, the small chapel where people prayed for outcomes they could not control. Then he passed the VIP maternity suite. The doors stood open, wider than the standard rooms, grander. Movement caught his peripheral vision. He should not have stopped, should not have looked, should not have slowed his sprint to a confused halt. But he did. The room glowed with soft golden light, not the harsh fluorescent glare of the standard rooms. This was intentional lighting, designed lighting, the kind of illumination that cost extra because it made everything look beautiful. The suite was massive, 3 times the size of the standard delivery rooms. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases on every surface. Roses, lilies, orchids in colors he could not name. A sitting area with leather furniture. A private bathroom with marble counters visible through an open door. This was the suite that cost $15,000 a night. The suite reserved for celebrities and executives and people whose names appeared in headlines. The suite that included a private chef and a concierge and nurses who remembered your coffee order. A man stood near the bed, tall, broad shoulders beneath a tailored charcoal suit, silver streaking through dark hair at his temples, the kind of distinguished gray that made men look powerful rather than old. Derek recognized the profile, the strong jaw, the confident posture. He had seen that face on Forbes covers, on business news segments, on the society pages his mother still clipped and saved in a scrapbook she thought no one knew about. Julian Ashworth, tech billionaire, founder and CEO of Ashworth Industries, net worth somewhere in the billions. The kind of wealth that existed more as concept than currency. But it was the woman in the bed who made Derek's heart stop completely. Auburn hair spread across silk pillowcases, the color of autumn leaves in late October. The color he had loved for 11 years without ever telling her. Green eyes that caught the light like sea glass tumbled smooth by ocean waves. The face he had woken up to every morning for more than a decade. The face he had kissed goodbye without realizing what he had. Meredith, his Meredith, except she was not his anymore, had not been his for 18 months, had not been his since he signed papers in a lawyer's office, while she sat across the table with red-rimmed eyes and a jaw set against crying. She was enormous, pregnant, gloriously, impossibly, undeniably pregnant. Her belly rose beneath the hospital blankets like a hill promising spring. The monitors beside her bed showed 2 heartbeats, 2 distinct rhythms pulsing on the screen in different colors. Twins. Derek's feet refused to move. His body stood frozen in the doorway like a statue of his own destruction, like a monument to bad decisions, like a ghost haunting the present with failures from the past. The phone in his hand buzzed again. Tiffany, demanding, desperate, increasingly angry. Where are you? But he could not look away from the scene before him, could not tear his eyes from the woman in the bed, could not stop cataloging the differences between the Meredith he remembered and the Meredith who lay surrounded by luxury and love. She looked healthy, radiant. The exhaustion that had shadowed her face during their marriage was gone. The tension that had lived in her shoulders had dissolved. She looked like someone who had finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Julian Ashworth noticed him first. The billionaire turned from the monitor he was studying. His eyes found Derek in the doorway. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, assessment, dismissal. He rose from his chair with the controlled grace of a man accustomed to handling unwanted intrusions. His hand remained on Meredith's shoulder, protective, possessive, permanent, the touch of someone who had earned the right to be there. Meredith turned her head. Their eyes met across 15 feet of hospital room, green and brown, past and present, everything and nothing. She paused. Her expression shifted through something Derek could not read, then settled into something he could. Indifference. Her green eyes locked onto Derek's face. No surprise there, no anger, no pain, something worse than all of those. Complete and absolute indifference. The look you give a stranger whose face you almost recognize. The look you give yesterday's news. The look gutted him more thoroughly than hatred ever could. Julian said, "Can we help you with something?" His voice carried the quiet authority of a man who never needed to raise it. A man whose power was so absolute that shouting became unnecessary. A man who could destroy Derek's entire existence with a single phone call and still have time for lunch. Derek heard himself say, "Meredith." Her name sounded wrong in his mouth. Too familiar, too presumptuous, like calling someone's wife by her first name at a formal dinner party. She did not respond, simply watched him with those sea glass eyes that used to light up when he walked through the door, that used to crinkle with laughter at his terrible jokes, that used to fill with tears when another pregnancy test came back negative. Those eyes held nothing for him now. Julian stepped forward. His body created a barrier between Derek and the bed, between Derek and the life he had thrown away, between Derek and any fantasy he might have harbored about reconciliation. Julian said, "You need to find the right room. I believe your girlfriend is in another wing. Room 412, the nurses can direct you." The word girlfriend landed like a slap. Accurate, damning, a precise incision that exposed everything Derek wanted to hide. He felt his face flush with something that might have been shame, might have been regret, might have been the beginning of understanding exactly what he had lost. His phone buzzed again, then a third time in rapid succession. Tiffany's text blurred together on the screen. "I am in pain. The doctors are doing something. Where are you? I need you now." But the worst part was not seeing Meredith pregnant with another man's babies. The worst part was not Julian Ashworth's protective stance, or the VIP suite, or the $15,000 room filled with flowers. The worst part was not even the genuine love radiating between them like heat from a fire. The worst part was the diamond on her finger. It caught the light as she rested her hand on her swollen belly. 3 stones in a row. Emerald cut, flawless clarity. Platinum band gleaming against her skin. The kind of ring that required security consultants and insurance policies and conversations with jewelers who served royalty. 3 times the size of the one he had given her. He remembered the ring he had proposed with, a modest solitaire that stretched his budget at the time. She had cried when she saw it. Happy tears, she said. Grateful tears. The tears of a woman who valued the promise more than the carat weight. This ring was different. This ring was a statement, a declaration, a tangible representation of a love that did not need to compromise. Derek's throat tightened. He tried to speak again, her name, an apology, an explanation, something, anything that might bridge the 15 feet between them. But a nurse appeared behind him. Her hand touched his elbow with professional firmness, the kind of touch that brooked no argument. She said, "Sir, your partner is asking for you urgently. Room 412. There have been some complications with the delivery. You need to come now." Derek looked back at Meredith one final time. She had already turned away. Her attention focused on Julian, on the monitors showing their baby's heartbeats, on the life she had built from the ashes of everything he had burned down. She was laughing at something Julian said. The sound carried across the room, light and genuine and completely unrelated to Derek's presence. He had never felt more invisible. Derek followed the nurse down the hallway. Each step took him further from what he had lost, closer to what he had chosen instead. The fluorescent lights hummed their endless electric song. The antiseptic smell grew stronger. The distance between the 2 delivery rooms felt like the distance between 2 possible lives. His phone continued to buzz in his pocket. He did not check it. He was too busy remembering the way Meredith used to say his name, the soft way she pronounced the second syllable, the way she used to believe in him, the way she used to wait for him to come home from dinners that ended far too late, the way she used to trust him completely. He checked his phone, locked it, unlocked it, locked it again. The text from Tiffany still glowed on the screen. The words urgent and complications and need you now blurring together. But his mind remained trapped in that VIP suite, trapped with the woman who had everything he had told himself she could never have, trapped with the twins she was about to deliver, trapped with the billionaire who had given her what Derek never would. The hallway stretched endlessly before him. The fluorescent lights marked each step like a countdown. Somewhere distant, another newborn cried. Derek Collins walked toward his future and wondered if he was walking toward anything at all. The phone screen glowed in the darkness of their bedroom. 11:37 on a Wednesday night. Derek was in the shower. The water ran steady and warm. Steam crept beneath the bathroom door like one rolling across a harbor. Meredith had not meant to look. She never checked Derek's phone. In 11 years of marriage, she had never once scrolled through his messages or examined his call history. Trust formed the foundation of their relationship. Trust and patience and the quiet hope that someday their family would grow beyond just the 2 of them. But the notification had appeared while he showered, a simple buzz against the nightstand, the screen lighting up with a preview of a message that changed everything. Missing you already. Last night was perfect. T. Meredith stared at the words. The green glow of the screen illuminated her face in the darkness. Her heart beat once, twice, then seemed to stop entirely. Missing you already. Last night was perfect. T, her mind rejected the obvious interpretation. There had to be another explanation. A colleague thanking him for a successful presentation? A client pleased with his work? Something innocent. Something that made sense within the framework of the marriage she believed she had. The shower ran in the bathroom. Steam continued to seep beneath the door. Derek's voice hummed something tuneless and happy. Something that sounded like contentment. Something that sounded like a man with no secrets. Her hands trembled as she picked up his phone. The device felt heavier than it should. Weighted with possibilities she did not want to explore. The passcode was the same as always. Their anniversary, October 14th. The date they had promised forever to each other in a garden filled with roses. The date she had worn white, and he had worn a smile that seemed to hold the world. The messages loaded in chronological order. 6 months of them, 6 months of texts that read like a romance novel written by someone else's husband. Cannot stop thinking about you. That dress drove me crazy at the conference. Meet me at the usual place. 8 o'clock. Wear the red. She makes me feel nothing. You make me feel everything. Meredith scrolled through photos she could not unsee. A woman with blonde hair and sharp cheekbones. Younger than Meredith by at least 5 years. Thinner. The kind of thin that came from gym memberships and meal plans, in time that Meredith spent at fertility clinics instead. The woman posed in lingerie that Meredith would never wear. Posed in hotel rooms with rumpled sheets and champagne bottles. Posed in ways that left nothing to imagination and everything to devastation. The shared credit card statements suddenly made sense. Business dinners that lasted until midnight. Conference trips that required extra nights. The small charges that Meredith never questioned because she trusted him. She trusted him. The shower turned off. Meredith set the phone back on the nightstand, precisely where it had been, screen down, just like she had found it. Her hands moved with mechanical precision while her mind screamed questions she could not answer. She sat perfectly still on the edge of their bed, the bed they had shared for 11 years, the bed where they had made love and fought and reconciled and planned futures that now seemed like elaborate fictions, her hands clasped in her lap, her breath shallow and controlled, 11 years of trust crumbling into dust that she could feel coating her throat, choking her, suffocating her. The bathroom door opened. Derek emerged in a cloud of steam and expensive body wash. The scent she had bought him for Christmas because she thought it made him smell sophisticated. The scent that apparently drove other women crazy at conferences. He smiled when he saw her waiting. The same smile he had given her on their wedding day. The same smile he gave her every morning over coffee. The smile of a man who had nothing to hide. He said, "Hey, beautiful, did you sleep okay? I did not mean to wake you when I got home." She looked at him, really looked, searched for some sign of the betrayal she had just discovered, some tell, some crack in the performance. Some indication that the man standing before her was not the man she married. His face showed nothing but the husband she had trusted, the partner she had built a life with, the man she had injected herself with hormones for, the man she had grieved with after every failed pregnancy test. All performance. 11 years of performance. She said, "Who is Tom?" The smile flickered, just for a heartbeat. A microsecond of something that looked like panic before training took over. Then the smile returned with practiced ease, broader now, more concerned. He said, "What do you mean, honey? Who is who?" She said, "The woman you have been sleeping with for 6 months, the woman whose hotel rooms I apparently paid for with our credit card. Who is she?" Derek's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine, searching for a winning combination. Surprise, calculation, denial, settlement on wounded innocence. He said, "You went through my phone." She said, "You are having an affair." He said, "Meredith, honey, you are overreacting. Let me explain." She said, "I saw the messages. I saw the pictures. I saw you telling her that I make you feel nothing." The wounded innocence cracked. Something harder emerged beneath it. Something she had never seen in 11 years of marriage. Something cold and calculating and completely unfamiliar. He said, "Fine, yes, her name is Tiffany. Tiffany Brennan. We worked together, it happened. But it did not mean anything. The words hit her like physical blows, each one landing with precision on the foundation of her life. Did not mean anything. 6 months, hundreds of messages, photos she would never unsee, plans made in rooms paid for with her money. Did not mean anything. She said, "How long?" He said, "Does it matter? It is over. I am ending it." She said, "6 months. According to your messages, 6 months matters." He said, "It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. I was stressed about work, about the fertility treatments, about everything." She was there. She listened. It just happened. The fertility treatments. Meredith felt something break inside her, something fundamental, something she would not be able to repair with apologies or therapy or time. She said, "You were stressed about the fertility treatments, the ones I underwent, the shots I gave myself every day in the bathroom mirror, the procedures that left me bruised and hopeful and terrified, the hormones that made me emotional and bloated and desperate. You were stressed." He said, "It affects both of us, Meredith. You are not the only one going through this." She said, "I had 3 rounds of IVF, 3 rounds, egg retrievals, implantation procedures, weeks of waiting and hoping and praying, while you were sleeping with someone else, while you were telling her I make you feel nothing." He reached for her. She stepped back. The distance between them felt like miles. He said, "It is over. I ended it tonight. That is why I was late. I told her we could not do this anymore. I chose you, Meredith. I came home to you." She said, "When?" He said, "What?" She said, "When did you end it? What time tonight?" He did not answer immediately. His silence stretched longer than innocence allowed. She said, "She texted you 15 minutes ago, missing you already. Last night was perfect." That does not sound like someone you ended things with tonight. The wounded innocence transformed into something uglier. Defensive anger. The kind of anger people display when their lies are exposed and they have no retreat. He said, "You are making this bigger than it needs to be. Couples survive infidelity all the time. We can work through this. We can go to therapy. We can rebuild." She said, "No." The single word hung in the air between them. Final, absolute. 2 letters containing the end of 11 years. 2 letters that changed everything. He said, "Meredith, be reasonable. Think about what you are saying." She said, "I want a divorce." The word tasted like copper, like blood, like the death of everything she had believed about her life. But it also tasted like something else, something that might have been the first breath of freedom. Derek stared at her. His handsome face shifted through more emotions: shock, fury, calculation. The face of a man assessing his options and finding them limited. He said, "You will regret this. You cannot make it on your own. Everything we have built is together. The house, the savings, the life. You need me." She said, "Watch me." The divorce took 3 months. 3 months of lawyers and negotiations and the systematic dismantling of a life she thought would last forever. Her lawyer was a woman named Patricia Hendricks, silver hair, sharp eyes. The kind of lawyer who had seen every variation of marital destruction and remained unimpressed. Patricia said, "His side is arguing for reduced alimony. They claim you contributed to the marriage's failure through emotional unavailability." Meredith said, "Emotional unavailability. I was undergoing fertility treatments." Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her leather chair. The diplomas on her wall seemed to watch the conversation with judgment. She said, "They are also citing your inability to conceive, claiming it caused emotional distance that drove him to seek comfort elsewhere." Meredith's hands went cold. Her inability, the years of shots, the procedures, the hope crushed over and over again, being weaponized against her in a conference room filled with lawyers. She said, "I did everything medically possible. I put my body through hell trying to give him children." Patricia said, "I know, and we will fight it, but you should prepare yourself. His lawyers are good. They will try everything." The divorce was final on a Thursday. Gray skies pressed against the windows of the law office. Cold rain streaked the glass like the building itself was crying. Meredith signed the final documents with a pen that felt too light for what it was doing. Her hand did not shake. She had used up all her shaking during the months of discovery and confrontation and legal battles. She was empty of tears, empty of hope, empty of everything except a hollow determination to survive. By Saturday, the news reached her through Caroline. Caroline Porter had been her best friend since college. The kind of friend who showed up with wine and terrible advice and unconditional support. The kind of friend who would help bury a body and never ask questions. Caroline called at 7 in the morning, her voice tight with barely contained fury. She said, "Are you sitting down?" Meredith said, "It is 7 in the morning. I am lying down. What is wrong?" Caroline said, "Tiffany Brennan is pregnant." The words did not register immediately. Meredith heard them, understood their individual meanings, but the combination refused to assemble into coherent information. She said, "What?" Caroline said, "She is telling everyone. Posted it on social media, 8 weeks along, glowing with happiness, tagging Derek in everything." The math did not lie. 8 weeks. That meant conception happened while Meredith was still married, while she was fighting for her share of the assets. While Derek's lawyers were arguing that her infertility broke the marriage. He got his mistress pregnant while still married to Meredith. While Meredith was injecting herself with hormones. While Meredith was blaming herself for every failed treatment. While Meredith was lying in recovery rooms after procedures designed to give him the children he claimed to want. She hung up the phone without saying goodbye. Then she went to the kitchen. She opened the cabinet. She found the bottle of wine she had been saving for a special occasion. A good vintage. Expensive. The kind of bottle you open when celebrating something worth celebrating. She poured it down the sink. Watched the red liquid spiral into the drain. Every drop disappearing into darkness. She would not drown in this. She would not let him take anything more from her. She would not become a woman who reached for bottles when the pain became too much. She would survive. But Meredith did not know the cruelest part yet. The part that would shatter her completely before rebuilding her into someone new. The part that would make every injection and every procedure and every shattered hope feel like an even deeper betrayal. That revelation waited 3 months away. Hidden in medical records she did not know existed. Waiting like a bomb with a timer she could not see. Dr. Patricia Sawyer's office smelled like lavender and disinfectant. A strange combination that somehow worked. Comforting and clinical in equal measure. The scent of healing wrapped in the reality of medicine. The walls displayed framed certificates and photographs. Dr. Sawyer with various medical colleagues. Dr. Sawyer receiving awards. Dr. Sawyer holding babies she had helped bring into the world. Decades of successful deliveries documented in silver frames. Meredith sat across from the fertility specialist who had guided her through 3 rounds of IVF. 3 rounds of hope. 3 rounds of failure. 3 rounds of grief that had settled into her bones like permanent residents who refused to leave. She had made this appointment for closure, not treatment, just understanding. After the divorce and after the revelations, after the systematic destruction of everything she believed, she needed to know why her body had refused to cooperate with her dreams. She needed answers, even if the answers hurt. Dr. Sawyer looked up from Meredith's file, a thick folder filled with test results and procedure notes and the documented history of hope destroyed over and over again. Something flickered across her face. Confusion first, then concern, then something that looked almost like horror. She said, "Meredith, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to answer honestly." Meredith said, "Of course, what is it?" Dr. Sawyer removed her reading glasses, set them on the desk with careful precision. The gesture of someone preparing to deliver news that would change everything. She said, "Did your ex-husband ever have a vasectomy at any point during your marriage or before?" The room tilted slightly. The lavender scent turned sour in Meredith's nostrils. The question made no sense, fit nowhere in the narrative she understood. She said, "No, absolutely not. Derek wanted children as much as I did. We tried for 5 years. We went through every treatment together. He held my hand through every procedure. He cried with me after every failure." Dr. Sawyer's expression shifted again. Pity now, deep and terrible pity. The look of someone about to deliver a blow that would leave permanent damage. She said, "I am reviewing your complete file. His medical records were just transferred from another clinic. Part of the paperwork consolidation after your divorce. Standard procedure when insurance coverage changes." She slid a document across the desk. medical records on official letterhead, Derek's name at the T, a date from 6 years ago. A procedure listed in clinical language that left no room for interpretation, vasectomy, performed at a private clinic in another state. Successful, no complications, patient counseled on permanence of procedure. Meredith read the words 3 times, her vision blurred, sharpened, blurred again. The letters swam on the page like fish avoiding capture. She said, "This is a mistake. These records are wrong. Someone else. A different Derek Collins." Dr. Sawyer said, "I verified the information. Social Security number, date of birth, insurance records. The vasectomy was performed 6 years ago at a facility in Connecticut, 3 hours from where you live. 3 hours away, far enough that she would never accidentally discover it. Far enough that no mutual friends would know. Far enough to maintain a secret for years." Dr. Sawyer said, "There is more. He had the vasectomy reversed 8 months ago. 8 months ago." The timeline assembled itself in Meredith's mind like a puzzle made of broken glass, each piece cutting as it fell into place. Derek got a vasectomy 6 years ago, a secret vasectomy, while telling Meredith he wanted children, while supporting her decision to pursue IVF, while holding her hand through every procedure, while watching her inject herself with hormones that made her sick and emotional and desperate. Then he reversed it. When he was already sleeping with Tiffany, when he knew the divorce was inevitable, when he was ready to start the family he had always claimed to want. Just not with Meredith. Never with Meredith. She said, "He knew every time we tried, every treatment, every injection, every procedure, he knew it would never work." Dr. Sawyer said, "Yes, based on these records, he knew." Meredith sat perfectly still. The air in the office felt thick, difficult to breathe, like the room itself was pressing against her. She said, 3 rounds of IVF, thousands of dollars, my body, my hope, my sanity, and he knew the whole time. Dr. Sawyer said, "I am so sorry, Meredith, if I had known. If his records had been available to us from the beginning, I never would have recommended IVF. I would have told you the truth." But Meredith was not listening anymore. She was remembering 3 rounds of IVF, each one more invasive than the last. Hormone injections that started gentle and ended brutal. Egg retrieval procedures that left her sore for days. The hope that built each time. The devastating crash when the pregnancy test came back negative. And Derek, beside her through all of it, holding her hand in waiting rooms, driving her home after procedures, making her soup from cans and telling her they would try again, telling her not to give up, telling her that someday they would have the family they dreamed of, all while knowing, all while protecting his secret with her broken heart. He let her blame herself. 3 rounds of IVF designed to fail. The shots, the hope, the crushing disappointment, all while knowing. Every sympathetic look he had given her after failed treatments was a performance. Every gentle word was a script. Every suggestion that maybe they should try one more time was a calculated manipulation designed to maintain an image of the devoted husband, while she slowly destroyed herself trying to give him something he had made sure she could never provide. Dr. Sawyer said, "Meredith, do you need someone to call? A friend? Family? I do not think you should drive right now." She said, "No, thank you. I need to go." Her voice sounded distant, mechanical, like someone else was speaking through her mouth. She drove home, or tried to, but her hands turned the wheel into an empty parking lot 3 blocks from her apartment. She pulled into a space far from any other cars, as far from witnesses as possible. The engine hummed. The heater blew warm air that felt suffocating. Outside, rain began to fall in thin gray sheets, drops hitting the windshield like tiny fists. Meredith sat there for 47 minutes, engine running, going nowhere. Her phone buzzed twice. Caroline checking in, asking if she wanted to get dinner, asking if she was okay. She did not answer. She thought about the shots, the morning injections she had given herself in the bathroom mirror, the way her stomach bruised purple and yellow from the needles, the way she had welcomed the bruises because they meant she was trying. They meant she had not given up. They meant she was doing everything possible to give her husband the family he wanted. She thought about the egg retrievals, the procedures that required sedation and recovery and days of discomfort, The way the doctors counted follicles and measured hormone levels and spoke about her body like it was a machine that might or might not cooperate. She thought about the transfers, the embryos placed inside her with so much hope, the 2-week waits that felt like years, the pregnancy tests that came back negative no matter how much she prayed. She thought about Derek, sitting beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, looking at her with eyes that seemed full of shared grief. All of it, every moment, every hope, every shattered dream, built on a lie he maintained for 5 years. The rain fell harder. Her windshield wipers were off. The world outside dissolved into gray streaks, impressionist paintings of a life that no longer made sense. She did not know how long she sat there before finally driving home. That night, she ran a bath. The water steamed. She added lavender oil because the internet said it helped with stress, because Dr. Sawyer's office smelled like lavender, and she wanted to understand if the scent brought comfort or just reminded her of terrible news. Then she got in fully clothed, jeans, sweater, socks, all of it soaking through immediately. The water rose around her, heavy and warm and somehow comforting despite everything. She lay back until only her face remained above the surface. She watched the ceiling. The water turned cold. Goosebumps rose on her arms beneath the wet fabric. Her teeth began to chatter. The shivering started small and grew until her whole body shook. She did not move. The cold felt appropriate. The discomfort felt earned. The shivering felt like the physical manifestation of everything she had been holding inside. 5 years of betrayal. 5 years of blame she carried for failures that were never her fault. 5 years of believing she was broken when the only broken thing was her husband's honesty. Carolyn found her 2 hours later. Meredith had given her a key months ago, for emergencies, for moments when being alone felt dangerous. This qualified. Caroline said, "Oh, honey, what happened? What is going on?" Meredith said, "He had a vasectomy." Caroline said, "What? Derek, when?" Meredith said, 6 years ago. Secret. He knew. Every treatment, every failure, every time I blamed myself, he knew. Carolyn turned off the water. The cold had numbed Meredith's fingers, made them clumsy and useless. Caroline found towels, wrapped them around Meredith like bandages for wounds that did not show on the skin. She did not say anything else, just held Meredith on the bathroom floor, let her finally cry, let her finally feel the full weight of what had been done to her. The tears came hard and endless, sobs that hurt her ribs, grief that seemed to have no bottom, years of sadness that had been building without release. But somewhere beneath it all, something else stirred. Not hope, not yet. Hope felt too dangerous, too fragile. Something harder, something sharper, something that might someday become strength. I am not crazy. I know what he did. I know what was taken from me. The thought felt like the first solid ground she had touched in years. Carolyn stayed until morning, slept on the couch, made coffee that was too strong, and toast that was slightly burned. The breakfast of friends who would do anything but did not know exactly what to do. Meredith drank the coffee, ate the toast, felt something shift inside her. What she did not know was that rock bottom had a basement, and she was about to find the stairs. 3 months passed. 3 months of therapy twice a week. 3 months of reorganizing closets and baking recipes from her mother's collection and watching every true crime documentary on every streaming service. 3 months of slowly remembering how to exist without the identity of wife, without the hope of mother, without the person she had been for 11 years. Caroline Porter had opinions about all of it, strong ones, loudly expressed, impossible to ignore. The kind of opinions that came with wine and pointed looks and ultimatums disguised as suggestions. She said, "You have reorganized your closet 4 times, the same closet. The shoes are now alphabetized by designer. That is not healthy." Meredith said, "It needed reorganizing. I have too many shoes I never wear." She said, "You have baked every recipe your mother ever wrote down. There are 7 pies in your freezer. 7. No human needs 7 frozen pies." Meredith said, "I wanted to preserve her legacy. Mom would have wanted me to keep her recipes alive." She said, "You have watched every season of every true crime documentary on 3 different streaming services. You now know more about serial killers than most FBI agents. Meredith said, I find them relaxing. It's nice to focus on someone else's problems. Carolyn said, you are ready to exist in public again. She held up a dress, emerald green silk that caught the light like something alive. The kind of dress Meredith had stopped wearing when fertility treatments made her body feel like a stranger's. The kind of dress that demanded attention instead of hiding from it. The charity gala was Caroline's idea, a black tie fundraiser for children's literacy, fancy donors with deep pockets, free champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's car payments. The kind of event where everyone wore masks of politeness over their real faces and pretended their lives were perfect. Meredith said, I am not ready. It is too soon. People will stare. Carolyn said, people stare regardless. You might as well give them something worth looking at. She said, what if Derek is there? What if he brought Tiffany? She must be showing by now. Caroline said, then we drink champagne and pretend they are invisible. That is what civilized people do. She said, I do not feel civilized. I feel broken. Caroline crossed the room, took Meredith's hands in her own. Her eyes were serious in a way they rarely were. She said, listen to me. You will never feel ready. Ready is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid living. Ready is a door that keeps moving further away the closer you get. At some point, you just have to walk through and deal with whatever is on the other side. So Meredith went. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers that cast rainbow fragments across every surface. Designer gowns in colors that could only be described with French words. Waiters in white jackets circulating with silver trays of champagne. A string quartet playing something classical and forgettable in the corner. Meredith lasted 45 minutes before the walls started closing in. The conversations blurred together. How are you doing? So sorry to hear about the divorce. Derek seemed like such a nice man. Are you seeing anyone new? The questions landed like paper cuts, small individually, devastating in accumulation. She escaped to the balcony. The night air cooled her flushed cheeks. The city spread below her like a circuit board of lights and shadows. Distant traffic hummed a mechanical lullaby that drowned out the string quartet. She had not expected company. A man stood at the far end of the balcony, tall, dark suit that fit like it had been made specifically for his body, because it had, silver at his temples that somehow made him look distinguished rather than old. He held a glass of scotch but was not drinking it, just watching the city the same way she was. He glanced over when she appeared, nodded politely, returned to his contemplation. She appreciated the silence. No small talk, no sympathetic questions about why she was hiding from a charity event, no probing looks that tried to assess her damage. Just two people sharing space without demanding anything from each other. After 5 minutes, he spoke. He said, the stars are better in Montana. She said, I have never been to Montana. He said, there is a place outside Bozeman, no light pollution for 50 miles. The Milky Way looks like someone spilled sugar across black velvet. She said, that sounds peaceful. He said, it is. When I need to remember that the universe is bigger than quarterly earnings reports and board meetings and people who want things from me. She almost smiled, almost. The muscles remembered the motion even if the feeling was not quite there yet. He said, you look like someone who is starting over. She said, is it that obvious? He said, only to someone who has done it. There is a look, something in the eyes, the way you are standing, like you are testing the ground before putting your full weight down, making sure it will hold. She said, I have had some ground collapse beneath me recently. He said, I can tell. She said, is it the hiding on the balcony that gave it away? Or the way I flinched when someone asked if I was seeing anyone new? He said, neither. It is the way you are looking at the city, like you are trying to figure out which version of yourself belongs there. The observation was too accurate, too precise. She changed the subject. She said, you said only someone who has done it. What did you start over from? He said, a marriage that ended badly, a business that nearly failed, a period where I drank too much and worked too little and forgot why any of it mattered. She said, how did you come back from that? He said, I stopped trying to be who I was before. That person was gone. I had to figure out who I was going to be instead. She considered his words. The champagne was making her honest. More honest than she intended with a stranger on a balcony. She said, "What if I do not know who that is, who I am going to be instead?" He said, "Then you figure it out as you go. That is what most people do. We just pretend we have it all planned." She said, "That sounds terrifying." He said, "It is, but it is also the only way forward." He turned to face her fully for the first time. His eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds before they break, the color of certainty mixed with possibility. He said, "Grief does not move in stages. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Books or therapy or programs designed to make you feel like you are failing if you are not progressing on schedule." She said, "How does it move then?" He said, "In waves, unpredictable, sometimes calm for days, sometimes drowning for hours. The trick is not to fight the waves. The trick is learning to float." She did not know his name. She did not want to. Names meant expectations. Names meant research and background checks and the careful distance that came from knowing too much too soon. Tonight, she just wanted to be someone without a story, someone undefined by divorce papers and fertility treatments and the systematic betrayal of everything she had believed. He said, "Can I call you sometime?" She laughed. The sound surprised her. She had not laughed genuinely in months. The muscles felt rusty, out of practice. She said, "I do not do that anymore." He said, "Do what?" She said, "Give my number to strangers at parties. Trust people I have just met. Believe that connection is possible." He said, "All of those sound like things worth doing." She said, "Maybe someday, not yet." He said, "Then have dinner with me, tomorrow. No expectations. Just two people who found the same balcony and decided to keep talking." She should have said no. Every instinct screamed caution. The wounds Derek left were still raw. The trust he destroyed was still rubble. She had no business considering dinner with anyone, let alone a stranger who spoke about grief like he understood it. She said, "Maybe." He smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less like a man carrying the weight of something heavy, more like someone who had learned to set burdens down. He said, "I will take maybe." He walked back inside. She noticed he left something on the balcony railing. A business card, simple, elegant, white cardstock with black lettering. No logo, no titles, just a name and a phone number. She waited until he disappeared into the crowd before picking it up. Julian Ashworth, CEO, Ashworth Industries. The name hit her like cold water. Julian Ashworth. The Julian Ashworth. Tech billionaire, founder of Ashworth Industries. Net worth publicly estimated at over $10 billion. Cover of Forbes 3 times. The kind of man whose sneeze affected stock markets and whose philanthropy built hospitals. She had just told a billionaire she did not give her number to strangers. The next morning, Caroline screamed. Actually screamed. The kind of sound Meredith associated with spider sightings and unexpected celebrity encounters and winning lottery numbers. Caroline said, "Julian Ashworth, the Julian Ashworth, asked for your number." Boom, Meredith said, "Technically, he asked me to dinner." Caroline said, "Same thing, better thing." Meredith, "That man could buy this apartment building. He could buy the entire block. He could buy the neighborhood and turn it into a park named after himself." Meredith said, "That is not really a selling point. I am not interested in being purchased." Carolyn said, "It is not the money, it is what it means. A man like that could have anyone, literally anyone in the world. Supermodels and actresses and heiresses and diplomats' daughters. And he wanted to have dinner with you." Meredith looked at the business card. Simple, elegant, nothing like the flashy excess she might have expected from someone worth billions. She thought about his words on the balcony. Grief moving in waves, learning to float, testing ground before putting your full weight down. She thought about the vasectomy Derek had hidden for 5 years, the way he had made her feel broken, the way he had stolen her chance to become a mother while pretending to want it as much as she did. She thought about starting over, about becoming someone new, about walking through doors without knowing what was on the other side. I deserve to be chosen, not as a second option, as a first, not as a backup plan, as the plan. She picked up her phone, dialed the number on the card. He answered on the second ring. She said, "How about tonight instead of tomorrow?" He said, "I was hoping you would say that." But someone was watching the charity gala coverage, scrolling through photos posted by society bloggers and gossip sites, looking for mentions of the event, searching for faces they recognized. Someone who had assumed Meredith would spend the rest of her life grieving what she lost. Someone who did not like seeing her smile in the background of a photograph. Someone who recognized the man standing beside her on that balcony and felt something ugly twist in his chest. Derek Collins discovered the photos on a Thursday afternoon. He was scrolling through his phone during a meeting about third-quarter projections. The kind of meeting that required his physical presence but not his mental engagement. The kind of meeting where he could pretend to take notes while actually checking social media and entertainment news and anything more interesting than spreadsheets. The headline caught his eye. Tech billionaire spotted with mystery woman at literacy gala. The photo showed Julian Ashworth leaving the event. The city's most eligible bachelor, the caption called him. Worth billions and still single. Until perhaps now. A woman walked beside him. Auburn hair, green dress. A smile that Derek had not seen in years. A smile he had not realized he missed until seeing it directed at someone else. Meredith. His Meredith. Except she was not his anymore. Had not been for months. Would never be again. He scrolled through more photos, more headlines, more speculation about the mystery woman who had captured Julian Ashworth's attention. Ashworth's new romance. Who is she? Billionaire in love? Mystery beauty steals his heart. From divorce to fortune, the lucky woman dating Julian Ashworth. Derek's hands tightened on his phone. The screen cracked slightly under the pressure. A spiderweb fracture spreading across the image of his ex-wife smiling at another man. He should not care. He had Tiffany. He had the freedom he had wanted. He had escaped a marriage that felt like a cage built from failed pregnancy tests and disappointed hopes. But the photos made something twist in his chest. Something possessive and ugly. Something he did not want to examine too closely. She was supposed to fall apart without him. That was the narrative he had told himself. The story that made his choices acceptable. Meredith needed him. Meredith could not survive without him. Meredith would spend the rest of her life regretting that she pushed him away. The photos told a different story. At home that night, Tiffany noticed his distraction. She was 6 months pregnant now. Her belly rounded beneath maternity dresses that cost more than his mortgage payment. Her demands had grown proportionally with the baby. She said, "You have been staring at your phone for an hour. What is so fascinating?" He said, "Work stuff, quarterly projections. Nothing interesting." She said, "Show me." He locked the screen. Too quickly, suspiciously quickly, the gesture of a guilty man. She said, "Is it her, your ex-wife?" He said, "No, Etoile, I told you, work stuff." She said, "You are a terrible liar. You have always been a terrible liar. It is almost impressive how bad you are at it." He said, "Fine, yes. Meredith is dating Julian Ashworth, the billionaire. It is all over the society pages." Tiffany's eyes widened, then narrowed. Her face shifted through emotions he was learning to read. Surprise, calculation, competition. She said, "The billionaire, the actual billionaire, the one on all those magazine covers." He said, "Yes." She said, "And this bothers you, why exactly?" "You left her. You chose me. Why do you care who she dates?" He said, "It does not bother me. I was just surprised." She said, "Derek, I am carrying your child. The least you can do is be honest with me, since we both know you struggle with that." He looked at her, 6 months pregnant, beautiful in the way that pregnancy made some women beautiful, glowing with something he should have felt grateful for. He said, "I expected her to fall apart without me. I expected her to prove that leaving was the wrong choice." The honesty surprised them both. Tiffany said, "You expected her to pine, to spend the rest of her life regretting the divorce, to prove that you were worth losing everything for." He said, "Maybe, yes." She said, "That is pathetic." He said, "I know." She said, "She is doing exactly what any smart woman would do, moving on, finding someone better, building a life without you." He said, "She could not do better. I gave her 11 years. Tiffany laughed. The sound was not kind. She said, She is dating a billionaire, Derek. Someone who could buy everything you have ever owned with the interest on his savings account. I think she is doing better. She walked away, her point made, her victory complete. Meanwhile, 3 miles away, Meredith sat across from Julian at a restaurant with no prices on the menu. The kind of place where asking what something cost marked you as someone who did not belong. The kind of place where waiters memorized your preferences and anticipated needs you did not know you had. Julian said, "You are quiet tonight, more than usual. What are you thinking about?" She said, "I told my therapist about the vasectomy today. In detail, the whole story." Julian set down his wine glass, his full attention focused on her. She had learned that about him over the past 4 months. When she spoke, he listened, really listened, like her words mattered more than anything else happening in the world. He said, "What did she say?" Meredith said, "She said I need to process the anger, that I have been so focused on surviving that I skipped over the rage, that I went straight from discovery to acceptance without letting myself feel what was done to me." He said, "That sounds accurate. You seem very controlled, very careful, like you are holding something back." She said, "I spent 5 years blaming myself, thinking my body was broken, thinking I was failing him, thinking there was something fundamentally wrong with me that prevented motherhood." She paused, her voice caught on the next words. She said, "And the whole time he knew and he let me suffer. He watched me inject myself with hormones, watched me recover from procedures, watched me cry after every negative test, and he knew the whole time that none of it could work." Her voice cracked on the last word. Julian reached across the table. His hand covered hers. Warm, steady, present. He said, "You deserve someone who chooses you completely, not someone who keeps you as a backup plan, not someone who lies about fundamental things, not someone who lets you blame yourself for problems he created." She said, "How do I stop being angry?" He said, "You do not yet. Anger is part of healing. It means you finally understand what was done to you. It means you are no longer making excuses for someone else's cruelty." She said, "I do not want to be angry forever. I do not want him to have that power over my emotions." He said, "You will not be. The anger has a purpose. It protects you while you rebuild. It reminds you of what you survived. But someday it will fade, and what will be left is strength." She said, "How do you know?" He said, "Because I have been there, not the same situation, but the same darkness, the same belief that things would never get better." And things got better. That night, she cried in his car outside her apartment, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body, grief that had been waiting months for permission to emerge. Julian did not try to stop her, did not offer platitudes or tissues or reassurance that everything would be okay, did not check his phone or glance at the clock or give any indication that he had somewhere better to be. He just held her hand and let her feel. Derek started appearing 2 weeks later. At first, Meredith thought it was coincidence. He walked past her favorite coffee shop while she sat by the window with a book. He appeared at the grocery store she had been shopping at since before they divorced. He showed up at the dry cleaner where she picked up her work clothes. Coincidence? Bad luck. The natural overlap of people who lived in the same city. Then he appeared outside her apartment building. Caroline saw him first. She said, "Your psycho ex is sitting on the bench across the street, just sitting there, with a newspaper he is clearly not reading." Meredith looked. Derek sat there in a jacket she had bought him for his birthday, his eyes fixed on her window, his posture suggesting he had been there for a while. She said, "What does he want?" Caroline said, "Nothing good. Exes who sit on benches watching your windows never want anything good." She said, "Should I call someone? The police? A lawyer?" Caroline said, "Not yet. He is not doing anything illegal. Just being creepy. Keep your doors locked." The confrontation happened 3 days later, outside a restaurant where Meredith and Julian had just finished dinner. The evening had been perfect. Good food, good conversation. The easy comfort of two people learning each other's rhythms. Then Derek appeared from nowhere, face flushed with something that might have been alcohol or anger or both, eyes wild with emotion she did not recognize in the man she had been married to for 11 years. He said, "We need to talk, Meredith. alone, without your bodyguard. Julian stepped between them. His body created a barrier. His voice stayed perfectly calm. He said, "You need to leave. Now." Derek said, "This is not your business. This is between me and my wife." Julian said, "Ex-wife, and she does not want to talk to you." Derek said, "You do not know her like I do. 11 years. I know everything about her, her favorite foods, her childhood dreams, the sounds she makes when she is happy. You are just the latest distraction." Julian said, "I know she deserves better than someone who lied about a vasectomy for 5 years. I know she deserves better than someone who sabotaged her fertility treatments while pretending to support them. I know she deserves better than you." Derek's face drained of color. The words hit him like physical blows. Meredith had never told anyone except Julian and her therapist. Not Caroline, not her family. The shame had felt too heavy to share. The betrayal too intimate to broadcast. But Julian had just said it out loud, on a public street, where anyone could hear. Derek said, "That is private. That is between Meredith and me." Julian said, "Your cruelty was not private. Every doctor who treated her, every nurse who held her hand after procedures, every friend who watched her suffer and blame herself, they all witnessed what you did. They just did not know the real cause." Derek looked at Meredith. Something broke in his expression, something that might have been the beginning of genuine remorse, or might have been the calculation of a man whose secrets were no longer secret. He said, "I am sorry. I know it does not help, but I am sorry." She said, "You are right. It does not help." She took Julian's hand. They walked to his car, left Derek standing on the sidewalk like a ghost of her former life, a haunting she no longer feared. That night, she could not sleep. Julian had gone home at her request. She needed time alone to process the confrontation, to feel what she felt without worrying about composing herself for someone else's comfort. At 2 a.m, she got out of bed, went to the kitchen, found her mother's recipe box in the cabinet where it had lived since her mother's death 3 years ago. She made pie, her mother's apple pie with the lattice crust. The recipe had been passed down through 3 generations of women who used baking as therapy, who measured flour instead of grief, who rolled dough instead of screaming. The first crust fell apart when she tried to roll it. Too much water, too little flour. The proportions off in a way her mother would have corrected instinctively. She started over. The second crust tore when she transferred it to the pie dish, too thin in the middle, too thick at the edges, amateur mistakes that her mother never made. She started over again. The third crust was perfect, smooth and elastic and cooperative, the dough behaving exactly as it should. She ate a slice at 4 a.m, standing at the counter in her pajamas, not bothering with a plate or a fork, just picking up pieces with her fingers and letting the sweetness fill her mouth. It tasted like childhood, like safety, like her mother's kitchen on Sunday afternoons, like the woman she used to be before Derek Collins convinced her she was broken. She did not know it yet, but the best revenge was already growing inside her, a miracle she had stopped believing was possible. 6 months into dating Julian, Meredith woke up nauseous. Not the ordinary morning nausea of too much wine the night before, not the stress-induced churning she had grown accustomed to during the divorce. Something different, something that felt almost familiar from years of hoping for exactly this feeling. She assumed stress. The relationship was moving faster than she expected. Julian had introduced her to his mother, Evelyn, had started talking about the future with an openness that terrified her. Future homes, future travel, future children that he said he wanted if she wanted them too. She assumed too much rich food. Julian's world included restaurants that served 20 courses of things she could not pronounce, tasting menus designed by chefs with stars and accolades and waiting lists months long. Her stomach was probably rebelling against excess. She assumed nerves. The relationship was going well. Too well. She kept waiting for something to go wrong because good things in her experience always did. She assumed everything except the truth. The pharmacy trip was routine, a weekday afternoon errand between meetings. She bought antacids for the nausea, crackers for emergency snacking, ginger ale because her mother had always sworn by it for upset stomachs, and on impulse, a pregnancy test, just to rule it out, just to confirm what her body had proven impossible over 5 years of failed treatments. just to stop the foolish hope that kept whispering despite everything she knew. The test was positive. She stared at the two lines, clear, undeniable, impossible. Two lines, the same two lines she had prayed to see for years, the same two lines that had never appeared no matter how many hormones she injected or procedures she endured. She took another test. Different brand, same result. Positive, then another. Positive, then three more. All positive. 8 pregnancy tests lined up on her bathroom counter like tiny soldiers announcing an impossible victory. 8 pieces of plastic that changed everything. She sat on the bathroom floor, the tile cold beneath her, the tests blurring through tears she did not expect. Her body shaking with something that was not quite laughter and not quite crying. This was not how it was supposed to happen. Not after everything. Not when she had finally stopped trying. Not when she had finally made peace with a future without biological children. The fertility specialist appointment confirmed everything. Dr. Patricia Sawyer looked at the ultrasound screen with undisguised amazement. The same doctor who had delivered the devastating news about Derek's vasectomy. The same doctor who had witnessed Meredith's breakdown and recovery and transformation. She said, "Twins. I see 2 heartbeats, both strong, both embryos developing normally." Meredith said, "Twins? How? How is that possible?" Dr. Sawyer said, "Sometimes bodies heal when stress disappears, when the emotional environment changes, when chronic trauma ends and peace begins." She said, "But the IVF, all those treatments, years of trying," Dr. Sawyer said, "were sabotaged before they began. Your ex-husband's vasectomy meant none of those treatments had any chance of success. The sperm samples he provided were specifically designed to fail. But your body, your reproductive system, it was never the problem." Meredith let the words sink in. All those years, all that pain, all that blame she had carried like stones in her pockets, and her body had been waiting, ready, patient, just not with the right person. She said, "I spent so long believing I was broken, thinking there was something fundamentally wrong with me." Dr. Sawyer said, "You were never broken. You were never defective. You were with someone who made you feel that way while he knew the truth. The problem was never you, Meredith. The problem was him." Julian's reaction was everything she needed. She told him that evening, over dinner at her apartment, pasta she made herself because she wanted this moment to be intimate and personal and real. Not in some fancy restaurant with waiters hovering, not surrounded by other diners and background noise. Just the two of them. And the news that changed everything. He went completely still when she said the word pregnant, then twins, then watched her face for permission to react, for some indication of how she felt, for guidance on whether this was joy or terror or something between. She gave it, a nod, a smile, a tear sliding down her cheek. He was across the table in seconds, on his knees beside her chair, his arms around her, his face buried in her hair, his shoulders shaking with something that might have been laughter or tears or both. He said, "I was going to propose next week. I had it all planned." She said, "What?" He said, "The ring is in my safe at home. Has been for a month. I was planning something elaborate. A trip to Montana, the stars you wanted to see. A whole speech about wishes and floating and finding someone worth learning to swim for." She laughed, cried, both at the same time, the emotions mixing together until she could not tell them apart. He said, "Marry me. I do not need the trip or the speech or the elaborate plan. Marry me." She said, "Are you asking because of the babies? Because you do not have to." He said, "I am asking because I love you, because I was going to ask anyway, because you are the first person I want to talk to in the morning and the last voice I want to hear at night. The babies are joy on top of joy, but they are not why I am asking." She said, "Yes." He said, "Yes." She said, "Yes." The ring appeared the next day, not the elaborate Montana proposal he had planned, just the two of them in her apartment, morning light streaming through the windows, coffee getting cold on the counter, the ordinary magic of an extraordinary moment. He slid it onto her finger. 3 stones in a row, emerald cut, flawless clarity, platinum band that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. She said to Julian, "This is too much. It must have cost." He said, "It is exactly enough. You deserve exactly enough. You deserve everything, but this is a start." The nursery took 3 months to design. Julian hired decorators who came with portfolios and mood boards and fabric samples in every color imaginable. He rejected their first 5 proposals. Too formal, too cold, too much like something from a magazine, and not enough like something for a family. Finally, he did it himself, with input from Meredith, with paint samples tested on the walls, with furniture assembled by his own hands because he wanted the babies to sleep in cribs their father built. 2 cribs, soft yellow walls like sunshine, furniture that cost more than most people's cars but looked simple and warm and welcoming. She sat alone in the nursery one evening. Julian was on a call with someone in Tokyo about something she did not pretend to understand. The house was quiet except for distant voices from his office. She traced the wooden railing of one crib, allowed her hand to rest on her growing belly, felt the twins move in response. 2 distinct rhythms, 2 separate dances. This might actually be real. This happiness, this life, this future. She allowed herself to believe it, just for that moment, just in the soft golden light of a nursery built for children she never thought she would have. But happiness has enemies, and hers was about to learn about the pregnancy in the worst possible way. Derek Collins was reading the society pages when he discovered that the woman he had thrown away was now expecting twins with a billionaire. The article included photos from a charity event Meredith and Julian had attended, her dress clearly showing the pregnancy she could no longer hide, her hand on her belly in that universal gesture of maternal protection, the ring on her finger catching every camera flash. The headline read, "Tech billionaire Julian Ashworth and fiancée Meredith Collins expecting twins." Derek read the article 17 times, each word a small knife. Twins. She was having twins. With someone else, someone better. The woman he had convinced could not conceive. The woman whose fertility he had secretly sabotaged for half a decade. The woman he had replaced with someone younger and easier and now carrying his child. That woman was pregnant, gloriously pregnant, radiantly pregnant, and he was not the father. Tiffany found him sitting in the dark living room at midnight, the glow of his phone the only light, his face illuminated by photos of his ex-wife's happiness. She said, "You saw the news about Meredith?" He said, "Yes." She said, "Get over it. She is your past. I am your present. Our baby's your future." He said, "I am trying." She said, "Try harder. You have a baby coming in 6 weeks, a baby with me. Focus on that." But Derek could not focus. Could not stop thinking about Meredith in a nursery decorated by Julian Ashworth. Could not stop imagining her holding twins with someone else's eyes. Could not stop wondering what might have been different if he had been honest from the beginning. If he had admitted he was scared. If he had trusted her with his fear. If he had chosen courage over cowardice and truth over deception. But those thoughts were useless now. The past was fixed. The choices made. The consequences inevitable. Tiffany Brennan was difficult. Derek had known this when he started the affair. Had known it when he chose her over Meredith. Had known it every day since, but had told himself the difficulty was worth the freedom. The demanding texts that required immediate responses. The expensive tastes that strained his budget. The constant need for reassurance that she was more important than anyone who came before. He had found it flattering during the affair. Evidence that someone wanted him badly enough to fight for his attention. Proof that he was worth pursuing even when married to someone else. Now he found it exhausting. She said, "I need new maternity clothes. The designer ones from that boutique downtown. Not the regular department store ones." He said, "The designer ones cost $4,000 for a dress you will wear twice before the baby comes." She said, "You spent more than that taking me to Paris last year. On a weekend trip, for no reason." He said, "That was different." She said, How? How was it different? Explain to me how spending money on a trip was fine, but spending money on clothes for your pregnant girlfriend is too much." He did not answer. The truth was too ugly, too revealing. Last year, he was spending from a joint account with Meredith, an account she never checked because she trusted him completely. He had access to her money without oversight, without questions, without consequences. Now he was spending from his own salary, his own limited resources. The lifestyle he had promised Tiffany required income he did not have alone. His father, Nathan, noticed the change. At a family dinner 3 weeks before Tiffany's due date, Nathan pulled Derek aside, away from the table where Brenda and Tiffany made awkward conversation about nurseries and baby names. Nathan said, "You look tired, more tired than expectant fathers usually look." Derek said, "New baby coming, everyone says to expect exhaustion." Nathan said, "I expected more from you." Derek said, "What does that mean exactly?" Nathan said, "It means I watched you throw away a good woman for whatever this is, and I am not proud of what I see." Derek said, "Tiffany is fine. We are building a life together." Nathan said, "Tiffany is demanding and selfish and treats you like an ATM with legs. Meredith was a partner. She built a life with you. She supported your career. She made our house feel like a home when you brought her for holidays." Derek said, "Meredith could not give me children." The lie tasted sour. He had told it so many times now, to his parents, to friends, to colleagues, to himself, the story of a marriage that failed because his wife was broken. Nathan said, "I do not believe that was the only problem, and I do not think you believe it either. Something happened. Something you are not telling us." Derek said nothing. The truth was buried too deep to excavate now. His mother, Brenda, was worse. She found him in the kitchen later that evening, alone, making coffee he did not want because it gave him an excuse to be somewhere other than the living room. She said, "I saw Meredith's engagement announcement in the society section. The Ashworth boy, very successful, very handsome, very devoted to her from what I can see." Derek said, "I know, I saw it too." She said, "She looks happy, genuinely happy. The kind of happy I wanted to see in her face when she was married to you but rarely did." Derek said, "Good for her. I am glad she moved on." She said, "You never made her look like that. Not in 11 years. Not even on your wedding day when she should have been radiant. There was always something sad in her eyes, something waiting for disappointment." He said, "Mother, please, this is not helpful." She said, "I am not trying to be helpful. I am trying to understand what you had with her, what you threw away, and you have never given me a satisfying answer." He had no answer, at least not one he could speak out loud. Meanwhile, Meredith's pregnancy developed complications at 32 weeks. Dr. Patricia Sawyer explained it carefully in her office. Diagrams on the desk, medical terminology translated into language Meredith could understand. Preeclampsia, blood pressure elevated beyond safe levels, protein in the urine indicating kidney stress. Not immediately dangerous, but requiring close monitoring and significant lifestyle changes. She said, "Bed rest, complete bed rest. No work, no stress, no activity that could elevate your blood pressure further." Meredith said, "For how long?" Dr. Sawyer said, "Until the babies come, or until the symptoms resolve. Whichever comes first. We need to keep them inside as long as safely possible. Every week matters for their development." Meredith said, "I have meetings, projects, things I am supposed to." Dr. Sawyer said, "Someone else will handle them. Your only job now is staying healthy for your babies." Julian canceled 3 months of business travel that afternoon, rearranged his entire schedule around her bed rest requirements. His assistant called twice with urgent matters, acquisitions that needed his attention, crises that required his presence. He declined both calls. His CFO requested a meeting about a major deal, the kind of deal that could define the company's future. He postponed it indefinitely. His mother, Evelyn, arrived with a suitcase 2 days later, announced she was staying at the house for as long as necessary. She said the grandchildren are more important than whatever those board members want to discuss. Money comes and goes. Family is forever. Meredith tried to protest, said she did not need around-the-clock care, said she could manage with periodic check-ins, said she felt guilty disrupting everyone's lives for something that might resolve on its own. Julian said, "You are not on your own anymore. That is the whole point of us. That is what partnership means." He worked from her bedside, laptop propped on his knees, conference calls taken with earbuds while she napped beside him, emails answered during her doctor appointments, his entire professional life reorganized around her physical needs. Every night, he read to the babies, his voice low and rumbling. Books about stars and adventures and places they would visit someday when they were old enough to travel. The twins kicked in response. Every time, like they knew their father's voice already, like they were dancing to the rhythm of his words. Meredith lay awake one night at 3 in the morning. Julian was asleep in the chair beside her bed. He had refused to sleep in another room, said he needed to be close in case anything happened, in case she needed anything at any hour. She watched him breathe, the rise and fall of his chest, the way his hands still rested on her belly even in sleep, the peaceful expression on a face that usually carried the weight of billion-dollar decisions. She allowed herself to feel safe. The feeling was foreign after so many years of vigilance, wonderful in its strangeness, terrifying in its vulnerability. For so long, safety had meant watching, waiting, preparing for signs of mood shifts and disappointments, protecting herself from hope because hope led to pain. This was different. This was allowing herself to be held, to be cared for, to be chosen completely and without conditions. She fell asleep with his hand warm against her skin, the twins moving gently beneath his palm. Everything was perfect, which is when perfect things usually shatter. Meredith went into labor at 37 weeks. The contractions started at 7 in the evening, mild at first, easy to dismiss as the Braxton Hicks she had been experiencing for weeks, then stronger, regular, undeniable. Julian had the car at the door within 3 minutes of her announcement. He had practiced the route to St. Catherine's Hospital 17 times, knew every traffic pattern, every shortcut, every contingency for every possible scenario. The hospital staff was called ahead, the VIP maternity suite prepared and waiting. Dr. Patricia Sawyer notified and on her way. Dr. Sawyer met them at the entrance. Calm and professional, the same doctor who had delivered devastating news about Derek's vasectomy now prepared to deliver something wonderful. She said, "Both babies are in position, both heartbeats strong. This is going to be straightforward if the babies cooperate. And from what I can see, they are already cooperating beautifully." Julian said, "Thank you for everything, for the news that broke her, for the truth that healed her, for bringing us here." Dr. Sawyer smiled, the smile of someone who had witnessed enough miracles to believe in them. The suite glowed with soft golden light, fresh flowers and crystal vases on every surface, roses and lilies and orchids in colors that seemed to change with the lighting. The best equipment medical science could provide, the best staff money could attract. Meredith settled into the bed. Julian took his position beside her, his hand in hers, his presence steady and calm and exactly what she needed. Evelyn waited in the family room down the hall, champagne chilling in a silver bucket, celebration planned down to the smallest detail, phone ready to announce the news to everyone who mattered. At 11:30 that night, across the hospital in a different wing, another woman went into labor. Tiffany Brennan arrived screaming, 3 weeks early, complications the doctors were still assessing, the baby not positioned correctly, blood pressure dangerously elevated. Derek sprinted through the hospital at 11:47, following the sound of chaos, following the texts on his phone that grew increasingly desperate. He passed the VIP maternity suite without meaning to stop. But he stopped. The woman in the bed, auburn hair spread across silk pillowcases, green eyes catching the soft golden light. The face he had woken up to for 11 years. Meredith. The collision was everything he feared and more. Julian noticed Derek first, rose from his chair with controlled grace, positioned himself between Derek and the bed, between Derek and the woman he loved, between Derek and the future that should have been Derek's if he had made different choices. He said, "Derek, you need to find your girlfriend. She is in a different wing." Derek could not look away from Meredith, from her swollen belly beneath the hospital blankets, from the monitors showing 2 heartbeats in different colors, from the ring on her finger that caught every source of light. He said, "She is having twins. She is in there having twins." Julian said, "Yes, my twins. Now leave." The words landed like physical blows. My twins. Not your twins. Not the twins you prevented through secret surgery and careful lies. My twins. Derek stood frozen, his phone buzzed continuously. Tiffany, demanding, desperate, furious. He should go to her. She was carrying his child, supposedly his child. The reason he left his marriage. The justification for every terrible choice. But he could not move. Meredith turned her head. Their eyes met across 15 feet of hospital room. Green and brown, history and distance, everything and nothing. She said nothing. Her face held nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not grief or regret or longing, just indifference. The indifference of someone who had moved so far beyond him that he no longer registered as important. The indifference of someone whose story no longer included him as a character. It gutted him more thoroughly than hatred ever could. Julian stepped forward, his voice quiet but absolute. He said, "You need to go. Now. Your girlfriend needs you. This room does not." Derek went. He walked down the hallway toward Tiffany's room. Each step felt like movement through water. Heavy, slow, wrong direction. Tiffany was screaming when he arrived, her face contorted with pain and fury in equal measure. She said, "Where were you? I've been waiting for 20 minutes. I called you 47 times. He said, "I came as fast as I could. I am here now." She said, "Not fast enough. Nothing is ever fast enough with you. Nothing is ever enough." The labor was difficult, long, complicated by the baby's position and Tiffany's blood pressure and circumstances no one could have predicted. She cursed him between contractions, blamed him for everything. The pain, the timing, the complications, the life she had given up to be with him. She said, "You said you would take care of me. You promised. You said I would be your priority forever. I gave up everything for you." He stood beside her bed, helpless, useless, watching her suffer through something he had helped create. Down the hall in the VIP suite, Meredith labored in relative silence. No screaming, no accusations, just focused breathing and determination, and Julian's hand in hers. Just the steady beeping of monitors and the encouraging words of medical staff. The contrast between the two deliveries was a story in itself. Nurse Rebecca Hartley brought Derek coffee around 1 a.m. He accepted it without thanks, held the cup without drinking. The coffee went cold in his hands. He stared at the dark surface, his reflection warped and unrecognizable. A stranger's face looking back at him. He thought about the choices that led him here. The vasectomy he chose in secret. The affair he pursued in shadows. The lies he told to everyone, including himself. The divorce he forced by refusing to be honest. He thought about Meredith in the VIP suite with Julian Ashworth, having twins, living a life he had told himself she would never have, being loved in ways he never loved her. He thought about what he had traded, what he had received in return, the exchange he made believing he was getting the better deal. The math did not balance, would never balance. The equation was broken from the start. At 2:15 in the morning, the news came from Meredith's suite. 2 healthy babies, a girl, a boy. Both perfect, both strong, both crying with the fierce determination of new life. The sound of their cries echoed through the maternity wing. Joy made audible, hope given voice, miracle proven real. Derek heard the celebration, champagne corks popping, laughter bright and genuine. Tears of happiness from people who loved Meredith in ways he never had. He sat in Tiffany's room and listened to someone else's life becoming everything his never would be. But the night was not done teaching Derek lessons. The biggest one was still coming. Dr. Patricia Sawyer held the first baby up for Meredith to see. She said, "A girl, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, APGAR score of 9, perfect in every way." The cry was high and strong, the kind of sound that meant healthy lungs and a fierce will to live. The kind of sound that Meredith had dreamed of hearing for years while believing she never would. Julian's eyes filled with tears. He made no effort to hide them. Let them fall openly down his face while he watched his daughter take her first breaths. Dr. Sawyer said, "And here comes her brother, ready to meet the world, 6 pounds, 14 ounces, also perfect, also stubborn based on how long he made us wait." The second cry joined the first, a duet of new life, a symphony of everything Meredith had stopped hoping for during the darkest years of her marriage. She held them both, one in each arm, their weight small but immense, their existence proof that sometimes the universe corrects its cruelest mistakes. Julian leaned close. His forehead touched hers. Their tears mingled on the pillow between them. He said, "You did it. You did everything. They are here. They are real. They are ours. She said, we did it. Together. Outside the suite, Evelyn Ashworth waited with champagne that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. She poured glasses for everyone, the nurses, the doctors, the staff who had helped bring 2 lives safely into the world. She said, to my grandchildren, may they have their mother's strength and their father's stubbornness. May they know love every day of their lives. Everyone raised glasses, even the staff who technically should not drink on duty. Some moments transcended protocols. Down the hall in room 412, Tiffany delivered at 3:47 in the morning. A girl, 6 pounds even. The umbilical cord wrapped slightly around her neck, but no lasting damage. 10 fingers, 10 toes. A cry that sounded more annoyed than frightened. Derek stood beside the bed as the doctors performed their standard assessments, as the nurses swaddled the baby in hospital blankets, as Tiffany demanded water and ice chips and a different pillow and a dozen other things in rapid succession. Something was wrong. Derek could tell by the way the medical staff exchanged glances when they thought he was not watching. By the way, Dr. Carm. Marshall stepped out of the room for what felt like far too long, by the hushed conversation happening just outside the door. When Dr. Marshall returned, his face was carefully neutral, the professional mask of someone about to deliver difficult news. He said, Mr. Collins, we need to speak privately. There is a consultation room down the hall. Derek followed him. The walk felt endless. The fluorescent lights buzzed too loudly. The antiseptic smell burned his nostrils. The consultation room was small. 2 chairs, a table with a box of tissues, the kind of room where bad news lived, the kind of room where lives changed direction. Dr. Marshall said, hospital protocol requires certain tests for high-risk deliveries. DNA typing, blood work, standard procedures designed to ensure we have accurate medical information for the newborn. Derek said, and, Marshall said, the baby's blood type is AB negative, based on Miss Brennan's medical records. She is type O positive. You listed yourself as a positive on the intake forms. Derek waited. The medical terminology meant nothing to him. Blood types were abstractions he had never needed to understand. Marshall said, given these blood types, there is no biological possibility that you are the father. The genetics simply do not work. The baby's father must have type B blood. The room tilted. The fluorescent lights buzzed even louder. The walls seemed to press inward. Derek said, that is impossible. We have been together for 2 years. She ended her previous relationship before we started dating. She told me. Dr. Marshall said, I can only report what the tests show. I am sorry. Derek said, run them again. There must be a mistake. Labs make mistakes all the time. Dr. Marshall said, we ran them twice. The results are conclusive. Derek walked back to Tiffany's room. His feet moved without his conscious direction. His mind floated somewhere outside his body, watching a man whose entire world was collapsing. Tiffany was nursing the baby when he entered. She looked up with an expression that might have been guilt, might have been defiance, might have been calculation about how to handle what was coming. He said, the baby is not mine. She did not deny it, did not cry, did not beg for forgiveness or offer explanations. She said, I wanted it to be. I really did. He said, who? She said, someone from before. Someone I thought was over. Someone who came back into my life around the time we started getting serious. He said, you were seeing someone else the entire time, the entire 2 years. She said, you were married the entire time. You do not get to judge me for having backup plans. The symmetry was devastating. He had left Meredith for Tiffany, had lied and cheated and destroyed 11 years of marriage for a woman he thought loved him completely, had sabotaged his wife's fertility treatments while sleeping with his mistress. And Tiffany had been doing exactly the same thing to him. The universe had a sense of humor, a cruel, precise, perfectly balanced sense of humor. Derek stood in the hallway between 2 delivery rooms, his mistress in one, his ex-wife in the other. Tiffany was crying now. Real tears or performance. He could not tell anymore. She demanded he come back into the room, threatened consequences if he abandoned her, reminded him that he had signed the birth certificate before the DNA results came back. Meredith was laughing. The sound carried through the hallway. Real joy, pure happiness, the kind of sound he had never heard from her during their marriage, the kind of sound that meant she had finally found what she deserved. He had done this, created both outcomes through his choices, built both futures with his decisions. In Meredith's suite, she did not know about the DNA results yet, would not know for days or weeks or maybe ever. But it did not matter. Her victory was not about Derek's downfall, never had been. It was about her own rising. The prison door was unlocked all along. I was my own warden. She held her twins and felt the truth of that settle into her bones, into her blood, into the new identity she was building one moment at a time. She had spent years blaming herself, years believing she was broken, years trying to fix something that was never wrong, years accepting a narrative written by someone who did not love her enough to be honest. The problem was never her. The problem was the man she trusted with her heart. And now she was free. Julian touched her face. Gentle, reverent, the touch of someone who could not quite believe his own luck. He said, "What are you thinking about? You look 1,000 miles away." She said, "I am thinking about how much time I wasted believing I was not enough. How many years I spent waiting for someone else to make me happy. How long it took me to realize that the only person who could fix my life was me." He said, "You were never wasted. Every moment made you who you are now. The woman I fell in love with, the mother of my children." She said, "Our children." He said, "Our children. The best thing I have ever been part of creating." She kissed him, long and soft, the baby sleeping peacefully between them. Outside the door, she could hear commotion in the hallway, voices raised, Tiffany's distinctive wail echoing off the walls, something dramatic unfolding in the way dramatic things always did in Derek's orbit. She did not ask what was happening, did not need to know. Whatever Derek's crisis was, it was no longer her concern, his drama, his consequences, his problem. But Derek was not finished making mistakes. He had one more terrible choice left in him. Derek tried to enter Meredith's room at 5:30 in the morning. Security stopped him immediately. Two men in hospital uniforms who looked like they spent their off hours training for situations exactly like this. One said, "This suite is restricted access. Are you on the approved list?" Derek said, "I need to speak with Meredith Collins, Ashworth, whatever her name is now, just for a few minutes, please." The guard checked a tablet, scrolled through names with professional efficiency. He said, "You are not on the list. Please step away from the door." Derek said, "I was married to her. For 11 years, I just need to talk to her." The guard said, "Past relationships do not authorize current access. Please step away." Julian appeared in the doorway, his shirt sleeves rolled up, dark circles under his eyes from a night without sleep, but something bright and fierce in his expression. The look of a man who had just become a father and would protect his family against anything. He said, "Derek, you need to go home, or wherever you are going, but you need to leave this hallway." Derek said, "I just want to talk to her. 5 minutes. That is all I am asking for." Julian said, "You had 11 years to talk to her. You used those years lying, deceiving, making her believe she was the problem when you were the problem all along." Derek felt something crack inside him. The careful construction of justifications he had built over years. The narrative that made his choices acceptable. The story he told himself about being the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of disasters. He said, "I made mistakes. I know that now." Julian said, "Mistakes is what you call it. She calls it something different." Derek said, "The vasectomy, Tiffany, all of it. I was scared. Terrified, actually. I did not know how to tell her." Julian waited, said nothing. Let Derek's words hang in the sterile hallway air. Derek said, "I was scared of being a father, scared of failing at it. My father set such high expectations. I never felt like I could measure up, so I made sure it could not happen. I took the choice away before I had to face it." Julian said, "And you let your wife think she was the reason for years of failed treatments." Derek said, I know what I did. But watching her with you now, seeing her pregnant, seeing her happy in ways she never was with me, it makes me realize what I threw away." Julian's response was quiet, measured, devastating in its precision. He said, She spent 5 years thinking she was broken. 5 years injecting herself with hormones that made her sick. 5 years recovering from procedures that damaged her body and spirit. You watched her suffer. You held her while she cried, and you knew. You knew the whole time that none of it could work. Derek said, I wanted to tell her so many times, but then it had been too long, and telling her would mean admitting. Julian said, admitting that you valued your secret more than her sanity, more than her health, more than the marriage you claimed to want to save. Derek had no defense, no words, no narrative that could reframe what he had done into something forgivable. Julian said, there is no conversation that fixes this. There is no apology big enough to bridge what you destroyed. She does not need your sorry. She has everything she needs in that room. Everything you told her she could never have. Inside the room, Meredith heard the exchange through the partially open door. She could have intervened, could have stepped into the hallway and faced her ex-husband, could have demanded answers she no longer needed or delivered recriminations that would not change anything. She chose not to. She looked at the twins sleeping in their bassinets, at Julian's jacket draped over the chair, at the flowers his mother had arranged on every available surface, at the sunrise beginning to paint the windows gold. She had everything she needed in her arms, in this room. In this life she had built from the ashes of one that burned. When Nurse Rebecca Hartley asked if she wanted to see the man in the hallway, Meredith's answer was simple and immediate. She said, no, I do not have anything to say to him. I do not have anything left to feel about him. And that is the freedom I have been waiting for. The nurse nodded, understood, had seen enough in hospitals to recognize closure when it appeared. Discharge paperwork arrived at 11 that morning, standard forms and instructions, and follow-up appointment schedules. Julian said, whenever you are ready, no rush. We can stay as long as you want. Meredith said, I think I am ready to go home now. Home. The word meant something different than it ever had before. Home was Julian's estate with the nursery he designed himself. Home was Evelyn waiting with champagne and plans for celebrations. Home was security and stability and someone who chose her first every single day. Home was the future she had stopped believing was possible. They left the hospital at noon, the twins bundled in car seats that had been inspected and reinstalled 3 times because Julian refused to trust anything less than perfection with their safety. Evelyn followed in her own car, already calling friends and family, already planning the announcements and parties, and all the things grandmothers do when new life arrives. Meredith looked out the window as Julian drove carefully through city streets. The world passed in familiar landmarks, transformed by new context. The coffee shop where she used to wait for Derek after work. The restaurant where he told her fertility treatments were too expensive. The apartment building where she had lived when she thought her life was permanently over. All of it looked different from this side of transformation. Smaller, less significant, relics of a past that no longer defined her. 1 year later, they married. The ceremony was intimate and elegant, held in the garden of Julian's estate where roses bloomed in every color, where 200 of their closest friends gathered to witness promises made with full hearts. The twins were carried down the aisle by Evelyn, a boy in a tiny suit that he kept trying to remove, a girl in a dress made with lace from her grandmother's wedding gown that she seemed to appreciate with infant grace, Claire and Thomas, named for Julian's grandmother and Meredith's father, names that honored the past while celebrating the future. Meredith wore ivory silk, simple, classic, the kind of dress that did not need embellishment because the woman wearing it provided all the beauty necessary. Julian cried when he saw her walking toward him down the rose-lined path, made no effort to hide the tears, let everyone see exactly how much she meant to him. His vows were short, private words whispered against her ear rather than performed for the watching audience. Words about waves and floating and finding someone worth swimming for. Her vows were shorter, 3 words that contained everything. She said, I choose you. Derek was not at the wedding, obviously. No invitation was sent. No announcement reached him through official channels. But he saw the photos when they appeared in society magazines and entertainment news. The beautiful ceremony, the happy couple, the twins who looked like perfect combinations of their parents. His own life had changed dramatically in the years since the hospital. Tiffany left him 3 months after giving birth, took the baby who was not his anyway, moved in with the actual father, A software developer named Marcus, who had been waiting in the shadows the entire time. Patient, certain. Everything Derek never was. Derek tried to fight for custody, then remembered the baby was not biologically his. Then remembered he had signed the birth certificate before knowing the truth. Then discovered that signatures created legal obligations regardless of DNA. He paid child support for the first year. Then the DNA results were confirmed in court. The support payments stopped. But so did his right to see the baby he had briefly believed was his daughter. He tried dating again, apps and setups, and the occasional bar conversation that went nowhere. Nothing worked. Every woman he met seemed like a pale shadow of what he had thrown away. Every connection felt superficial compared to 11 years of marriage he had failed to appreciate. His parents stopped inviting him to family dinners, not officially, just scheduling conflicts that somehow never resolved. Just holidays where his name appeared to have been forgotten. His father Nathan said, "Call when you become someone worth knowing again, when you figure out how to be the man we raised you to be." His mother Brenda said nothing. Her silence was worse than Nathan's words. His job demoted him. Budget cuts, they claimed. Performance concerns, restructuring that happened to eliminate his position and replace it with something lower. He suspected the Ashworth name had something to do with it. Suspected but could not prove. Julian's reach extended further than Derek had ever imagined. He moved into a studio apartment, the kind of place with a Murphy bed that stuck when you tried to fold it. A hot plate where a kitchen should be. Neighbors who played music too loud and argued too often and reminded him that some people had real problems. He worked at his father's company now, in a position Nathan used to call entry-level, shuffling papers, making copies, watching younger colleagues get promoted over him while he remained stuck in place. Rock Bottom had a basement, and Derek had found every floor. Meredith saw him once more, a Tuesday afternoon in early spring, 18 months after the hospital collision. She was at a coffee shop with the twins. Claire and Thomas were 18 months old now, walking with the uncertain determination of people who had only recently discovered their legs, talking in half sentences that only made sense if you loved them enough to translate, demanding crackers and juice, with the certainty of people who had never been denied anything important. Derek was sitting by the window when she walked in. He looked older than he should, tired in ways that sleep could not fix, gray at his temples that aged him a decade, shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and empty regrets and dawns that brought no relief. She could have ignored him, pretended not to see, ordered her coffee and left without acknowledgement. Instead, she stopped at his table. She said, "Derek." He looked up, his eyes widened with the something that might have been hope or fear or simple surprise. He said, "Meredith, you look amazing. You look happy." She said, "Thank you, I am." He said, "These are, wow. The twins, they are beautiful. They look just like you." She said, "Their names are Claire and Thomas. They have their father's stubbornness and their grandmother's appetite." He said, "Julian must be proud." She said, "We both are." An awkward pause stretched between them, filled with 11 years of marriage and 18 months of silence and everything that happened in between. He said, "I am sorry for everything, for the vasectomy, for Tiffany, for the lies, for making you think you were broken when you never were." She looked at him, really looked, searched for something in herself, anger that might still be hiding, satisfaction at his obvious downfall, lingering hurt that might need acknowledgement. She found nothing, not revenge, not triumph, not even closure in the traditional sense, just nothing. She said, "I know." He said, does knowing change anything between us about how you see what happened?" She said, "No, it does not change anything, but it does not need to. I already changed everything myself." He nodded. His coffee cup was empty, had probably been empty for hours. He had probably been sitting in this window watching the world pass without him for longer than he would ever admit. She said, "Oh, take care of yourself, Derek. I hope you find whatever you are looking for." She meant it, not out of affection, not out of residual love, but out of something more generous. The kind of compassion that people who have found happiness can extend even to those who hurt them. She took the twins and walked to the counter, ordered her latte and their apple juice, and a chocolate chip cookie to split 3 ways. Paid and left without looking back. In the car, buckling Claire and Thomas into their seats with practiced efficiency, she caught a glimpse of Derek through the coffee shop window. He was watching her, his face pressed against the glass like a child watching someone else's birthday party. Like a man standing outside a warmth he could no longer enter. She waved, not cruelly, not triumphantly, just a wave. The kind you give someone who used to matter but does not anymore. The kind you give someone you wish well without wishing them back. Julian started the engine. He said, "Was that who I think it was?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Are you okay?" She considered the question, really thought about it, checked inside herself for damage or disturbance or any sign that the encounter had cost her something. She said, "I am better than okay. I am exactly where I want to be, with exactly who I want to be with, living exactly the life I want to live." He reached across the console, took her hand, squeezed once. She said, "I spent years waiting for him to regret what he did, imagining his face when he realized what he lost, dreaming of the day when he would understand exactly how wrong he had been, when he would apologize and I would finally feel vindicated." Julian said, "And now?" She said, "Now I realize that his regret was never the point. His understanding was never the goal. I do not need him to know what he lost. I already know what I gained." The car pulled away from the curb. The coffee shop disappeared in the rearview mirror. Derek disappeared with it. Meredith looked back at the twins. Claire was falling asleep, her cheek pressed against the car seat padding. Thomas was pointing at something outside his window and babbling excitedly about things only toddlers could see. Her life was full, complete. Everything she had stopped hoping for during the darkest years. She had stopped waiting for Derek to regret what he did. Somewhere along the way, she realized his regret was his problem to carry. Her happiness was hers, and she was keeping it. The car turned onto the highway. The city spread out below them. Ahead, mountains rose against a blue sky filled with possibility. Julian said, "What should we do this weekend?" "Your choice." She thought about it. Claire made a soft sound in her sleep. Thomas pointed at a bird and shouted something that might have been bird or might have been burrito. Either was possible with toddler pronunciation. She said, "I want to see the stars, the ones you told me about that first night on the balcony, in Montana, where the Milky Way looks like sugar spilled on black velvet." Julian smiled, the same smile that had first caught her attention when she was just someone trying to remember how to breathe. He said, "I was hoping you would say that. I have had the trip planned for 6 months, just waiting for you to ask." She laughed. The sound filled the car, mixed with Claire's sleepy breathing and Thomas's excited babbling and the steady hum of the engine carrying them toward home. The road stretched before them, long and open and leading somewhere good. She did not know everything the future held. No one ever does. Life kept its secrets until they were ready to be revealed. But she knew this. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly who she was meant to be with, raising children she never thought she would have, building a life she never thought she deserved. And the woman she had become was someone worth knowing, someone worth choosing, someone worth loving completely and without conditions, someone who had finally stopped waiting to be rescued and learned to rescue herself instead. The end of Meredith Collins' story was not really an end, it was a beginning. The kind that happens when you stop letting someone else write your narrative. The kind that happens when you finally pick up the pen yourself, and she was just getting started. The mountains grew larger in the windshield. The sky grew bluer. The twins grew quieter as the motion of the car lulled them towards sleep. Julian drove steadily, carefully, his hand finding hers whenever the road allowed. Behind them, the city faded. The coffee shop where Derek still sat became invisible. The hospital where the collision happened became just another building in the skyline. Ahead of them, everything waited. The stars over Montana, the life they were building, the love they were proving every single day. Meredith closed her eyes, felt the sun warm through the window, felt the twins breathing peacefully in their car seats, felt Julian's hand warm in hers. She had waited so long for this feeling, and now that she had it, she was never letting go.